Hi, I'm Brittany Ganoza of Ganoza Costuming, and today I'm going to be showing you how to paint some awesome looking leather using the X-treme Flex wood and leather technique kit. These techniques can be applied to anything you want to look like leather. I'll be using a piece I've built, and I'll start by adding some texture, scarring, and weathering. Once you have your bracer made, I think it's time to really add some texture to this so we can make it look a little bit more worn and aged. And some of the things that you can use to make that look more textured is tin foil. You can ball it up and it gives this great gritty texture when you press it in to the foam. You want to apply with a heat gun and then press that in. But other things that you can also use to make things like slashes are a box cutter or an X-Acto knife, a soldering iron, or a Dremel tool. So I have a piece of spare foam here that we can use to test out the foil effect, and you can figure out exactly how much heat you need to apply or exactly what type of texture that you like. You don't have to use tin foil. This is the easiest way to get that good leather effect, but you can practice with other types of things like rocks, sandpaper. I know people used all kinds of different things to press into it to see what type of textures you can get for things like this. So first you want to apply the heat gun and get it pretty warm. I mean, you can figure out exactly how much heat you like, but the warmer you get it, the more impressions it's going to make. So as you can see, there's different textures in here. As it starts cooling down, the impressions start to become less. If you want to hit it again with the tin foil, you can, but it's worth noting that as soon as you hit it again with the heat, it's just gonna take all the impressions out that you just did. But as long as you don't get it close to the impressions that you already made, then those ones will remain, and that area you'll be able to apply new texture to. Okay, so there you go. So now that I've got an idea of how to apply this texture, I'm going to apply it to my actual piece. And it's best to work in sections. Don't try and do the entire thing at once, because otherwise the entire thing is going to cool down while you're working on it, and you're just gonna need to go over it again. Once you have your texture of the leather texture on there throughout the whole piece, you can do things like use a Dremel for a little bit extra battle damage, or use a soldering iron for things like slashes. Well, you can use both of them for slashes. So we'll just do a few here. So that's what you can expect from the use of a Dremel. But something a little quicker is using the soldering iron. Love using this, it's so easy. You can really gouge it too. It's not absolutely necessary, but it just makes such beautiful score marks. Yeah, we'll do another one here. So that's what the soldering iron and the Dremel will do. And this makes it so you can really get more depth in your piece. Though these pieces aren't completely necessary, but they do help with the general like worn feel of the whole piece. Now that you've got the texture on your foam, you can go directly to base coating. And we're gonna base coat with this black. Make sure to really get it into all the crevices, because that is very important. You don't want any white or gray or whatever color foam you got poking through. Once you have a black base coat on your finished piece, go ahead and apply the dark brown over the entire surface. Once you've got your brown base coat, you can start with your shadows. What we're gonna do is use these smaller brushes, not too fine, but still a smaller, like rounded brush, and this angled brush. And we're just gonna mix a little bit of the dark brown with the black paint and create like just an even darker brown. And we're going to put it into these crevices where all the trim is. So you'll put it in between that trim, this one, wherever there's overlapping pieces. You can clean your brush off and blend it out with a dry or clean brush, a little bit wet, and just blend it out. This really helps different layers recess and show up better. So this is going to appear much more on top than in between here. And you would go and do that for around all of the lacing, in between all of the different pieces, and of course where it meets the straps. So now that all of this shadow is in all of these crevices, we're gonna go for doing shadow in all these indentations that we made with the foil, and also underneath these lacings here. So we'll take that same color we were using before, and just kind of get it into those crevices. Just mash it down in there. Mash it. With a paper towel, lightly glaze over top of it. Because you don't want to get inside the crevices, you just want to pull off what's on the top. After that, put the dark brown paint right over top of what you just did, applying really, really softly over top of the ridges. You'll notice that the dark mixture stayed in the crevices while the brown stayed on top. Also make sure that you apply the shadow color to the edge of the armor, on the outside edge and also the side edges. Adding shadow to those areas will add a lot more depth. Use that same shadow color to go inside all of the battle damaged areas. Next, we're going to mix the yellow ochre color with the dark brown to create a highlight color. We're gonna go about 50% dark brown to 50% yellow ochre. To create a little bit of a lighter brown. The reason that we're not mixing in white for this particular piece is that it keeps the richness of the leather color. So we'll apply that first to these lacing details. You don't have to do it the entire way. You just do one side of the lacing or just the edges. This just adds a little bit more depth. Doing the entire thing kind of sucks the depth out of it. Just applying to the ends and blending it in with my finger. Feel free to mix it up a little bit. It doesn't have to all look the same. Also, don't forget to add a little bit of shadow where the laces overlap. We're also going to apply the highlight color to the edges here of the detail piece going over top of the bracer. Clean off your brush, make sure it's mostly dry, and blend it in. You're going to try and apply that type of detail to all of these edges. Okay, so since all of those edges are done, we'll do the highlights on a different section. One of the other things that you can do is actually take a slightly bigger brush and get that same highlight color on it. And lightly, while putting the brush horizontal to the bracer, lightly push the paint over top. You don't want it to go into the crevices because you want to keep those shadows that you applied before intact. Once you have all of these highlight colors applied to these edges and all of the textures, you can do the highlights on the edgings here. You'll just apply right along the edge. A little bit more paint this time. Of course, if you see any of those texture spots, run the highlight over top of it. You can do it on you can apply that on the top and the bottom of this edge. Of course, you can also add some extra highlights wherever you want. Just kind of dab it in there if you'd like. It's your piece, do it how you want it. Okay. So with the highlight on the edge here, we're now going to highlight all of these slashes. You'll only need to add a little bit of that highlight color on one of the edges of each slash. Like this. Be careful not to cover up any of your shadow that you did before. Also highlight the bottom edge of your bracer, the same way you did the top. Once you're done with your highlights, you're finished, and you made some basic looking foam look like battle-worn leather.